All right, welcome back to season 3, episode 21 of the MVP Real Estate Podcast. We have Yvonne, Aileen here, and I didn't catch where you're calling from.
Portland, Oregon.
Oh, you got a friend already. I'll let Natasha take over for a second.
Okay. My husband and I, we just bought a house in Willamette Valley, so we love it out there.
Where exactly?
McMinnville.
Oh, McMinnville. Oh, yeah, this great wine country.
Yep. We are literally like 6 blocks from, 3rd Street? So, yeah.
Oh, great. That's great. I like that town.
That's where we're looking to retire when we get older. And then my brother also lives out in Portland, so.
Oh, wow. That's great. It's changed a lot. It has changed a lot.
Yes, it has. But,
yeah.
Portland was so fun.
Yeah. What's that?
Portland is so fun. I had to go out there for a work conference. Our work conference was held at the Timbers Stadium.
Oh my God, he would have freaked out. He loves
it. The stadium was really nice. It was really
embarrassing. Nice. I was on a date with somebody. He had really great tickets to the Timbers, and we were like front center. You know, he was really excited about the Timbers, and we get there, and it wasn't until they actually started playing that I realized this was not a soccer game. I had no idea. I had no idea what sport I was going to.
I mean, the Timbers are soccer.
Oh, I'm sorry, baseball. I was thinking it was a baseball game. So they come out and I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So it was embarrassing. Here he thought he was doing something really cool, and I have no idea what sport.
Not a soccer fan?
No, I'm not really, I don't have time for sports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine. You said you're running 3 businesses right now.
Yeah.
And we'll dive into all of them. So I can definitely see how you wouldn't have time to pick up on sports. Yeah. I was a college athlete and I barely watch sports.
Oh, really?
I watched 10 seconds of the NBA Finals game last night, just because when I popped open Facebook today, it had the highlights. That's what I watched.
So what got you started with this podcast?
I wanted to, me and Natasha, when I worked for another broker, we had thrown around the idea of starting a podcast for people that wanted to get into real estate that had the obstacles. I don't have money, I don't have time, I'm doing this, to try and bring in people in the real estate world just for education. So they can hear real life examples of how people do have full-time jobs or have families, or they live in a market where it's not very price friendly, that you can invest out of state, and how it's done. We've watched Natasha do it as a co-host, invest out of state. She went from 0 to investor out of state.
Wow. I could probably take some lessons from you, Natasha.
No, absolutely not. No, this was totally, we were just very lucky and fell into it, and it happened so quickly, and we're like lucky enough to find a long-term renter, so we're very blessed.
Yeah.
But every week she's on the show and she gets a little closer to investing, and then it finally tipped over to where she pulled the trigger on it. So it's working.
That's great. So
that's our motivation behind the podcast is education, is getting people who are on the cusp and want to try it, who've watched HGTV and been like, that's super cool, but actually make it real and obtainable for them. So
more in the line of investing or in the line of actually being a broker?
Some have gone on to become agents that I've talked to. But mainly, at least for me, I talk about investments because that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Sure.
But again, I've talked to people because they come and talk to me, and I'm sure you've had questions about like, where should I start? Should I become an agent first? Do I need to be an agent to be an investor? And it's really wherever you want to take it.
Yeah, I first got into real estate on the investment side. I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy named Colin Sheets. He used to be okay.
I have.
I bought his program. This is going to tell you how long ago this was, when it was all on these cassette tapes. I got 12 cassette tapes, and I listened to everyone, and I was going to be a no money down investor. That's the whole thing, is no money down. And I did use it to buy a fourplex in Hawthorne, which is a very trendy area of town. And I will say I didn't do it for no money down. I had to, put money down. But I learned enough from his workshop that I was able to get a deal that I probably wouldn't have been able to get otherwise. So yeah, it taught me a lot. And then I wasn't a broker at that time. I used a broker to help me purchase. And then in my undergraduate years, I received a newsletter, one of those canned newsletters, a real estate newsletter and I was going to school for writing English. And I thought I could do a better newsletter than this. I turned it over. Here I was in Oregon. It had been produced in Ohio, some firm in Ohio. And I'm like, I could do better than this. So I created a real estate newsletter and I sold it to real estate agents in the area and put their photo and their logo and their name on it. And that got me through my undergraduate years.
Wow.
And yeah, I had some clients.
That's awesome.
Ordering like 1,000 copies a month, and they would send it out to their sphere, their farm area or wherever.
Yeah, that's a nice little like part-time job while you're in school.
It was
That's
a
awesome.
perfect combination, and writing and real estate actually. But I wasn't really into being an agent. And then after I graduated, I wanted to take that newsletter national and put it on the web and do different regional newsletters. And I got a website called Client Gold, and I put it out there, and nobody bought it at that time. Nobody was really doing newsletters anymore. And so I was complaining to a friend of mine about it. She said, well, you should become an agent and that would help you sell it better. I'm like, I don't want to be an agent. That was in 2002. And then in 2003, I became an agent, and then the market took off. And I thought, wow, I'm really good at this. I should have been doing this all along, because all you had to do is pick up the phone and you had a deal, right? It was just crazy. Stated income, no documentation loans. And I just rode that wave for a while, and then the market crashed. And I think what a lot of agents don't know is that real estate is very cyclical. So even though we had, the market bubble and the market crash, every year when I first started, even in the heyday, right about mid-November, things just stalled. And I thought, what's wrong with me? I used to be really good at this, and now I'm not. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And I would do the absolutely worst thing. I would buy into lead services, and I would buy splashy ads, trying to just drum up some activity, some business. And I hope, if I could tell agents anything, or people who are interested in doing real estate, is that you don't need to do that. Your money is where your sphere is, and that is it. Do not spend money advertising or on lead services that are usually just not any good. And just press the flesh, get out there, meet people, let people know that you're in business and that sort of thing. So
yeah, and we just talked about all the free avenues people have nowadays with social media. There's forums out there everywhere. You can connect with people so much easier. It's all free. So when you are starting to get the word out that you are in real estate or that you are doing this, a lot of free services just to start. Like you're saying, you don't need to pump a bunch of money in off the start.
No. And also, you don't have to follow someone else's model either, especially if it doesn't work for you. I met these two guys when I first got into real estate, and here's how they worked. They would get into the office at 7 o'clock in the morning for anybody else arrived. They had a standing desk. They did not sit down. They got on the phone and they started making calls to for sale by owners and expired listings. And they did that for 2 hours, set up appointments for the rest of the week, and went out and did the appointments. And this one guy who started at the same time I did, he was a top producer for our brokerage his first year, just doing that. And see, I can't do that. That's not in my, no, I could, it would just make me so nervous. I would break out in a cold sweat. I would just feel so.
I was like, that sounds like the most miserable day I could have.
Exactly. So you have to do what works for you. If it doesn't work for you, if you don't want to be on Instagram or on TikTok, you don't have to. But if that's what you enjoy, use that. Go that approach and do a podcast, do something that I'm because I've been in the business a while, and I felt so bad for so many buyers who just were super naive in the process. And so I was able to bring a lot of value to them as a broker, explaining to them how the process worked and some negotiation strategies and some loans that they may not know about. And because I really wanted to help more people outside of my market and get this off of my brain, I wrote this book it's called How to Buy a House for Vital Real Estate Strategy for the First Time Home Buyer. And I published that and I put that out. And I think that probably what buyers don't know can keep them out of the market entirely, because they may go to one lender, for instance, and that lender will tell them, no, you don't qualify. Well, what that lender is actually saying is, I don't have anything for you. It doesn't mean that that buyer won't qualify for a different loan with a different lender and different criteria. They probably should go to a mortgage broker. That's the best place. They work with many banks, and those banks have many products. So you have exponentially more options there. And they're also the mortgage brokers motivated to make the deal happen. So they will find that deal for them.
Right.
Can.
Yeah. And when you talk to clients about loan packages and explaining how credit unions work differently than banks, and banks and credit unions work completely different from mortgage brokers, rates and packages and all that, then they're like, oh, this is bigger than what I thought. I thought I'd just go to the bank that I have my money at and they give me a loan and we're good. It's like, shop around a little bit, try and find rates are going to be different. Terms are going to be different.
Qualification standards will be different.
Yeah. They're all different and they all work different, like independently from themselves. So it's a big market to try and gather in if you're not in the world of real estate. And then you start talking about appraisals and assessments and how those are kind of the same, but completely different. It gets a little gray when you're doing it. So that book, what was the name of that book?
It's How to Buy a House, Vital Real Estate Strategy for the First Time Home Buyer. And it's an audio book, it's an ebook, and it's a paperback book available pretty much.
Awesome. We'll make sure to throw that link in the show notes as well.
All right, thank you.
But yeah, that is an important piece as education.
So true.
When I'm working with clients, I'm like, ask every question you can, because what I don't want to have happen is you think it's a dumb question, or you're scared to ask, or you assume, and then when we get to closing, something weird happens, or
like the insurance binder.
So just ask all the questions you can right now, because again, sometimes I forget, like I've gone through this and I assume the process and like I know what's coming next. And I figure like, yeah, they do too. But I have to take the step back and like, okay, are you guys, do you understand what comes next? Do you know what date that falls on? All that kind of stuff.
Even terminology, they don't, sometimes they'll hear a word and they think they know what it means. I had a buyer who was confused between what an appraisal and what an inspection was. And she told me, oh, I've scheduled the appraisal for blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you schedule the appraisal? Usually your lender will do that. What do you mean? And we shouldn't have the appraisal yet. We haven't even had the inspection yet. She's like, oh, that's what I meant, the inspection. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. So.
I mean, it's their first time going through it. And for somebody to handle like the biggest asset they'll buy for the first time, it's good to have somebody there that at least answer questions. So
it is.
I'm always ask away, please. Any question.
I also believe that they should only work with someone they feel comfortable with. Just because a realtor may be your cousin, if you don't think they know what they're doing, find somebody who does. And and don't work with someone who's not going to return your phone calls. Responsiveness is huge in this business. A lot of time, that's the biggest complaint I hear from consumers is they never return my phone calls. I never heard from them, and that's crazy. It's a relationship business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell every client that I take on, yes, we're going to sign a listing contract or a contract for me to be your agent on the buy side. We're going to do that. But if you aren't comfortable or if you have issues, I'd rather you bring them up. And if you want to go somewhere else and this isn't a good fit, I want you to find somebody that you're comfortable with. Because at the end of the day, this is your house. You want me to help you. I'm not going to come in and mandate like, no, you're working with me and this is how it's going to go. Because at the end of the day, we're going to get to closing and you're going to be upset at something. So I'd rather you find somebody that fits for you guys, that more like has the sight or can look through your glasses, your lens, and see what you want if I'm not picking up on it.
Right. I think I probably empathize way too much with my clients. I get so wrapped up in it. I'm like, oh no, there are a couple times where I haven't been able to help a client. One client was a Japanese woman, and she had married a man who had a job here in the States. And so she never got her citizenship. She just was a citizen because she was married to him. And then he died in a car accident.
Oh.
And she was, this is during the whole Homeland Security thing, she was deported back to Japan. She could not, she hired some attorneys out of state and they didn't do a good job for her. And she was actually deported. And so I had to help her sell her home. And it was just so hard for her because she couldn't afford anything in Japan. You know, she was going back. She lived here 20 years. And it was just, wow. I can't tell you how that one ripped my heart out. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I was glad it was me helping her because I could be sympathetic with her, but at the same time, that was a hard one to see her back.
Yep, and we've talked multiple times about how it's a business, but you're dealing with people, so emotions are going to be there. Yeah, I get a little bit nervous about people who say that they want to get into real estate as a broker because they like houses. Because that is definitely not the reason to get into real estate. It is so much a relationship business. You better like people a lot, and also have a thick skin, and also be able to be Switzerland when you need to be.
That's why I don't sell houses. That's why I help people because I'm like, you can't do that stuff. I love houses, but I don't like the rest of the hoopla that goes with it.
Yeah, that I know. And also I think a lot of newer agents too are they think that everybody's a multi-million-dollar producer, and you know they won't have to work very much, and they get to rake in the big bucks. And paydays are few and far between, especially when you're starting out. And you know, you could work with somebody for 2 months and never make a payday because they either decide not to buy in your market, or they just decide it's not the time for them, or maybe your listing agent, their house just doesn't sell. You know, they want too much for it and they can't get it sold. So you know, it's if you're going to get into the business, I would say have 6 months of living expenses in the bank before you even start.
Sure.
And make sure you pick up the phones, like the two guys that you had met getting into it. Phone calls are going to be where it's at.
Yeah, you got to hustle for sure.
Yes. Or jump onto networking groups or something. You got to get your name out. And you can't be timid to tell people that you're in real estate. I feel like agents nowadays are a little bit like scared because they feel like they're going to bombard. As soon as I say I'm an agent, the perception is the other person's going to shut down. Be like, okay, here comes the sales pitch.
Yeah, well, it does happen sometimes where they say, oh, I'm not in the market. I'm like, well, that's fine, totally fine. It doesn't matter. I just wanted you to know. Brian Buffini, do you know who he is?
No, I haven't heard him.
He is a real estate coach. And he has an organization called the Buffini Organization. I highly recommend his programs. He said when he first got into the business, he went to a bar and he met some guy, and the guy gave him his business card, and it said $1 million producer, and he thought that meant that you made $1 million. And so he was so excited. He got out there and was but he has something called the mayoral campaign. And I really like the approach. It is when you meet someone, you say, hi, if you knew someone who needed a home or wanted to sell their home, would you have someone that you would recommend to them? And if they say no, then you say, oh, well, just so you know, I happen to be a real estate broker. I've been in the business for X number of years, and I would really love to help them. Here's my card. If they say yes, say, That's wonderful. That's great. If you ever need a second person, and then you
Yeah.
give them a heart. And so it's a really low approach, it's like, it's not pushy. It's just, if you needed, do you have someone? And then
Yeah.
that also helps you decide if you want to add them to your database or not.
Yep.
And he also recommends categorizing your database A, B, C, D. A are the people that have already done business with you and have already referred you. B are people that they're warm leads. C are people that if they really knew that you wanted the business, they would probably refer you. And then D are delete, get them off your list. There's no.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's smart.
Yeah, I wrote down his name. I'm going to look up stuff from him after the show.
Yeah, I think you'll be pretty surprised. And he also has a catchphrase that is, oh, by the way, I'm never too busy for any of your referrals. He has that on the back of his business card, and it's sort of a way to sort of let people know that you want referrals, but that you value them enough that you would want to work with someone that they know and like. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
I know I worked for agents all throughout the US, and I know a couple of my agents have followed his program before. So I put my things.
He's great because he just really sort of breaks it down. And he's also humorous and funny. He's from Ireland. And if you go to any of his seminars, you'll laugh. It's very funny. He married an Olympic athlete.
Wow.
He's kind of an average height Irish guy, and she's a tall African American athlete, and they make quite the pair.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
awesome.
Not
That's
intimidating at all.
Yeah, the intro part is, I think, the best. It's like that first impression. You don't want to be pushy. You have to come in confident, even if you just started. The 72 hours of training that you just did through that course, you do have the knowledge that they're looking for. You may not have practiced it yet, but you have to show some sort of confidence towards it. But you don't want to come off as pushy or leave a bad taste in their mouth. So the referrals were always a good thing. You can go up and talk to anybody about, I mean, you go to a meetup and everybody's there for one reason. So there shouldn't be a reason that you don't join in on the fun. Tell them what you do. But if you're in like a coffee shop and you sit down and you're waiting in line, like you can tell people that you're stopping in before your next meeting and this is what you do, and not push them into like a full-up conversation of how can I help you buy and sell a home, because you haven't asked what they needed yet or found out where they're at in their real estate, I'll say, lifespan. Because at one point, I'm confident at one point in someone's lives, they're going to be dealing with real estate at some point. And I just want to be the person that pops up.
Exactly. And if you can get them on your database and then stay in touch with them, that's really important too. Just be top of mind when they're thinking of real estate,
Yeah.
Like you
and
said.
now they have services that'll help you do that too. Now, one that pops up is that constant contact, but that is a paid service. So for some of these things you would have to pay. Otherwise you can do it manually. If your list is small, you can still send out, I think Gmail does time sensitive emails.
They do.
Like you can set up an email and then remind yourself, or it automatically sends out in a week.
Yeah, I'm old school. I do a newsletter, and I used to do like a 4-page newsletter, color and print and fold it and send it. But now I just do a newsletter on my letterhead, and it's just to my A and B database. So I send it out, and all I have in there is just what's happening in the market right now, because that's what people want to know. They, like, how's the market? They want to know how it is. And then if I have a current listing, I'll tell them where it is. And if I have an open house coming up, I'll tell them where it is. And I send that out. I try to do it once a month, but lately that hasn't been happening. And I enclose my business card. And at the end, I say, and by the way, I'm never too busy for any of your referrals. And it's just, people enjoy getting it because I really do convey actual information. I tell them about new loan programs that are coming up. I tell them about how sellers can avoid being homeless when they sell in this market. And so they enjoy getting them. They're not at all salesy. I don't say, send me your business. I just say, if I'm never too busy for any of your referrals. And that's like the end of it, but the whole, it's like 99% total information. So
Yeah. And that kind of goes into the other part of your, what'd you call yourself, a multipreneur?
multipreneur, yes.
So writing books, doing the newsletter. Talk a little bit about that, because I'm curious on, you said you did some training for brokers or for agents or for both?
So I develop real estate courses for continuing education and pre-licensing for a company called Calibri, and they have McKissick and Hondros, and they have multiple real estate schools that work under their Calibri umbrella. And before that, for 10 years, I did the same exact thing for a company called the CE Shop, which is based in Denver, Colorado.
No.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've heard of the CE Shop.
Yeah.
That name does ring a bell.
The,
So that's
yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. I used to manage a group of instructional designers and writers and at the CE Shop, but I parted ways with them for multiple reasons I won't go into. And I really like working for Calibri. It just happens to be their main competitor. Calibri has close to 1,000 employees, whereas the CE Shop had about 150 when I left. So it's a much bigger organization. But the reason we heard of it is it used to be very small, and then it started buying all of these schools. And so you've probably heard of McKissick or Hondros or some of their regional.
McKissick sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I don't know where I would have seen it though, but
that McKissick is really big on sending out. They were almost obnoxious, I thought, sending out reminders for when your CE is coming due, and you get a post from them. And yeah, they're very heavy marketing driven. I don't know how much that's going to change.
Maybe that's where I've seen it before.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure. Yeah.
That's cool that you're on like the ground floor of the new agents coming in, so you can kind of write the training manual of how they're going to operate in the field, which is super exciting.
Yeah, and not a lot of people who do what I do, developing courses, are actually practicing brokers or have ever been practicing brokers. So I'm able to bring sort of a more real world perspective to it,
Yeah, because that is the one thing that new agents will find. What you read in the book and what you practice, it's a little different.
It's totally different. And when they get out of their pre-licensing education, they start working. They're like, oh my gosh, I remember when I first had a deal. I had sent out, because I'd done all this reading on how to become a successful real estate agent. I read this book by a woman named Marilyn something, can't remember her name, but she recommended marketing to other brokers. So I'm in Portland, and on the other side of the river is Vancouver, which is Washington, which is a different market, right? You're not licensed in both. So I worked for a regional firm, and I would send out postcard mailings to my colleagues across the river and say, I will give you a 30% referral fee, where, standard is about 20, 25. I'll give you a 30% referral fee if you refer me your Oregon business. And I got my first deal that way was a lady who had bought and sold multiple properties. So she knew her stuff. She was also a contractor. She knew buildings, but she needed to find something that weekend because she was getting ready to go on a 6-week photo safari. And so here I am, brand new agent, and I'm taking this woman around who really knows her stuff, and I don't. And then she finds a condo. She wants to make an offer on. We go back to the office. It's 6 o'clock at night, and she's leaving the next day, but not until the afternoon. And I do not know how to fill out the offer. I don't know how to do the paperwork. And the office nobody's around. My broker's gone. The office is closed. And I don't know what to do. And so here's what I did. I said, you're probably tired. We've been at this all day. Why don't you go home? I'll prepare the paperwork for you and I'll bring it to you. And she said, oh, that would be so nice. Thank you so much. And I got on the phone and I called a Lifeline. A friend of mine had been in the business a while. I said, I will buy you a bottle of Bailey's if you tell me how to fill this thing out. And so that's how I got my first transaction done. Because you don't learn the paperwork either.
You don't.
No, you don't know how to do any of that stuff. So you're just
Make it till you make it, right?
Yeah, make it till you make it.
Yeah, you basically know the forms, you know what's in there, but then on your first day, they're like, okay, now go do it. And you're like, but do what?
Yeah.
Like you have to do your marketing, you have to lead generate, then you get a client and you're filling up paperwork. I've never done that before. What addendums do I add?
Yeah.
There's a whole other thing that you got to learn, and you only learn in the field because I don't think they'd be able to train that because markets are different and there's a lot of nuances from where you're at that you can't put that in the training. You have to get in the field and you kind of have to trust yourself to float.
Yeah, I feel like we're missing the boat here. We really need a mentorship kind of thing for new agents,
Yeah.
where or there's a commission split, or they, but yeah.
Hopefully. I'm hoping to start a brokerage here in a couple of years, and that was one of my big things. I worked for a company. It was commission based, just like real estate, but they offered like a draw system, and then there was leadership positions above. So when you got in, you had a mentor that you could call that would be there, and then you obviously would share some of your profit with them. But at 6 p.m. when you don't know what's going on, you can call them, and they're the ones that are going to help you get through that first initial stage. And then when you graduate and move up, now you're in that position, and then you'll have somebody underneath you where it's kind of
I
a
like that
cyclical
model. Yeah, that's great.
It was very cool, but it's capital intensive because they were offering draws because a lot of people didn't have the 6 months backup of just jumping into commission only.
Yeah.
So that one is a bit capital intensive, but I'm trying to work out the little nuances that go with it.
Yeah, maybe there's a way to do that without having to have a bunch of cash outlay.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out. So if you figure it out, let me know.
Okay,
We can tag team that one together.
I'll think about that.
So more on the educational piece, or I wanted to go into your newsletter before I go into that educational. You said you started in your little market. You were sending it out to brokers in your market. You were obviously pulling data for that market to help them out. When you went national, that's your whole piece of pie right there. How did you dive into each market and get the data for, let's say, Ohio or Cleveland, be more specific?
So I started my webpreneurship by developing, my husband and I had worked at a public relations firm, and he lost his job. And I had been an editor there, but I had quit to have my babies. And so we needed to find a way to make some money where we had these 2 young babies, and all we really knew was public relations, And
Yeah.
so at that point, I decided, well, public relations is a service-based business, and that means you're selling your time. Maybe there's a way to turn it into a product. And I knew people thought public relations was really sexy, and so I turned it into a 12-week course in public relations. And then I had a certificate of completion at the end. And because of our background in public relations, we had the cred to convince people that we knew what we were doing. And then I sold it online. I bought keyword advertising. At that time, keyword advertising was cheap. And so I had students in 19 countries taking my course.
Wow.
And I developed three versions of it. One was a public relations toolkit for small businesses, and it was all the same content. It was just a different angle on it. Another one was for freelancers who were maybe doing writing and then add public relations service to it. Another one was for career advancers. So somebody who was maybe an admin or something and wanted to do public relations for their company so that they could learn how to add that to their, skill set. And yeah, it did quite well. But I sent out physical binders with the information and CDs that had templates for the white papers and press releases and all of that.
Wow.
So,
were you creating all that content? You were doing recordings and all the sheets and everything?
Yeah, I did it all.
Wow.
Yeah. And
that had to have been labor intensive.
It was super labor intensive, but you create it. That's the great thing about being able, if you can turn something into a product where it's a widget as opposed to, selling your time. You create it one time, and then I made 3 versions of it, and I'm sending the same course out every, to different people. So you create it once, you sell it many times. And that's one drawback of real estate. It is a very hands-on intensive business.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time between paychecks, and also a lot of time just devoted to, the service.
Yeah. So you took that was where you started in terms of going national.
Yeah.
And then you wrote your book after that one.
Yeah. So
all along while you're running your brokerage. This is all during the time you're running your brokerage.
And having babies, right?
And being a full-time mom.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't sleep a lot.
Same.
So with the success of that PR business, then after I started that newsletter, then I thought, oh, maybe I can turn that newsletter into national, on the web, because I had all this pay-per-click advertising. But by the time I thought of that idea, pay-per-click advertising was really expensive, and I just couldn't, I spent a lot of money on advertising, and then it just wasn't a thing that it was easy to sell over the internet. When I sold my newsletter, my real estate newsletter, I actually went into the offices and went to their sales meetings, brought copies of my newsletter, and then sold it that way. Said, if you're interested, here, where you go. People would say, well, what if I buy it and then somebody else buys it and somebody gets the same newsletter? Well, that's the same thing with those regional ones you buy. And chances are, that that's not going to happen. I'm one person versus, this big conglomerate that's in Ohio that's selling to everybody. So
yeah. And I mean, yes, it might be the same newsletter, but the data is going to be the same data. You're in the same area. So whether it's coming from me or coming from somebody else, the data is the data, and that's the same either way.
That's why I don't love those postcard mailing that you can get, or, you're going to end up with, everybody gets a copy of the baseball schedule for the season, right? And everybody gets
the baseball schedules
of where the Apple festivals are, and you get the same postcard from two different agents, and it just doesn't look good. So
speaking of postcards, you'll enjoy this one. I just got one, and I'm trying to make sure that there's no personal info. All right, so I just got this one in the mail. They're interested in buying my house. That house was torn down 2 years ago and rebuilt. So we're outdated here. And then the back is just the black and white with your info. But I was like, well, that's interesting. We got to update a photo here, because I'm sure they ran numbers on this property for what it was and don't know that now it's a 2-story home that's completely different.
Yeah. Well, and what I love too is when sellers tell me, well, Zillow says it's worth this much. And in this market, but here's my saying. I say there are lies, damn lies, and Zillow, because they're just so far afield. They could be $60,000 off. They could be more than 10% off easily. There's
a lot of those little, the iBuyers, I guess they're calling them now, that are pulling back on what they were doing because their data was so off. Zillow has gotten themselves in trouble because they'll buy those homes that are sitting on the market thinking that there's going to be some sort of return, or they can list it again and make money. And they're losing money on all of them because all of they're set on analytics that are off. Yeah. And they can't narrow down into little sub-markets. They can only do general.
Yeah, Zillow actually got out of the iBuyer business. They're no longer.
They're completely out now. I knew they were pulling back drastically. They're out.
Yeah, they're out. They've sold. Okay. They lost money, but they make a lot of money, so they'll be fine.
They will be fine.
Yeah.
They'll give everybody their property values that get them excited, and then they go talk to us, and we're the bad guys. Be like, that's not right.
Yeah, sometimes we're the bad guys. Sometimes we're the good guys. Sometimes they err on the other side, but usually they overprice. And I think one of the reasons they would overprice before is because they were in the iBuyer business. They wanted to keep the values up because it helped them. Because then,
that was a scary one. But I'm glad they recorrected there a little bit.
Yeah, they did. I don't think iBuyers, will ever displace brokers. I just don't think they will. The service isn't there. And they, oh my goodness, I just had some buyers purchase a home that was flipped by an iBuyer, and they just hired this crap paint company that came in, and they actually painted over the rings that used to hold the smoke detectors. They left those on the wall and they painted right over them. They painted over light switches and outlet covers. And I
can't stand that. Like the outlet covers, the switches, hardware on cabinets or doors.
Yes, they did that too. The hinges in the kitchen cabinet are all painted over.
I don't know why, but that just, it sends shivers when I see it. Like just take the metal off, paint it, and put the metal back on. It's not difficult.
They don't pay them enough, and so they just come in and spray because that's the only way they can afford to do it. And and the iBuyers never see it. They're hands off. They're like the middle person. And
I've had a couple clients go in and they're like, oh, this house looks really nice and it's updated. They must have just flipped it. And I'll call the agent, hey, yep, it turns out to flip. And we go in, and because we flip homes and because we do property management, I'll walk in and be like, it looks great, but here's what's behind it. And we had one where they had renovated the bathroom and they'd put in new plumbing for the toilet, but the trap, your wastewater out of your toilet, they couldn't get that piece in because the floor joist was in the way. And the floor joist is what holds up your floor. So they just decided to cut it out and put the trap through it. So when you stand over the toilet and you press down, the floor actually goes up and down because they just cut out. It's like, that's an issue. Yeah. And then they tried to cantilever over. So they've got a support post and then your ceiling runs over it, but this is like your weight bearing, but they didn't set it correctly. So the whole, like if you stood in one angle of the living room, you can see it come down to a peak, like it's already sinking. Oh. So there's little things like that yes, it looks great, but in 2 years, like you've got some major damage ahead of you.
Yeah, it's good that you can spot that for them and not have to have them pay an inspector. Because I've had clients, I'm not good at spotting things like that. I can spot cosmetics, like the painter, by the way, I didn't tell you. So they painted down to almost to the molding on the floor, almost, but there was a bathtub ring all on every single wall where there's about that much that did not get painted, like an inch of the wall was not painted, because then they put carpet down, but the carpet wasn't tall enough to cover that up. So every single wall had to be repainted in the entire house. Anyway, I forgot where I was going.
No, it's you see those and it gives the flippers the bad names, and man, it's scary. And then I think like, okay, well, those are big things. What are the small things they missed?
Yeah.
If they're missing those, they're missing other things, and you're going to spend X amount of dollars for an inspector to come in, say all these things. Are you ready to either ask for all this money off of your offer, or are you going to front the money? Like, where are we going to sit there? And they're like, well, I don't like either of those situations. I'm like, well, then this is probably not the house for you.
Yeah. I know in some crazy markets, I know Seattle was doing this a while back when the market was really hot too. The sellers are requiring pre-inspections by the buyers. So you have to waive the inspection to even get an offer.
Oh, yeah.
So they give the buyers a period of time where they have to do the inspection. And this is before they even know if they're going to get the offer accepted. So they might have 5 buyers or more inspecting the same house. The inspectors loved it because it gave them a lot of business, right?
Yeah.
But you're shelling out $500-600, and then you don't even know if your offer is going to be accepted. But the seller wouldn't even look at an offer that didn't waive the inspection. So.
Yeah, I wish the buyers had a little bit more leverage here. We haven't seen that here because the sellers are like, well, we got one house and we have 50 buyers. So you guys over there on the buyer side deal with figuring that out.
Yeah, well, okay. So a couple of things I would tell your people that are fairly new are waiving the appraisal gap is one thing that buyers are doing right now. So the prices are ratcheting up, and sometimes the sellers are concerned that it won't appraise. So the buyers will waive the appraisal gap, either all of it or a portion of it. Say they'll waive $20,000 of the appraisal gap. The other thing is, because there are investors out there and they have cash, and buyers do not have cash, most buyers. some lenders in some areas, and we have one lender in our area, the Portland area, that's doing it, are allowing the buyers to come in by paying cash. So the lender buys the property and buys it as and or assigns, and then in 10 days resells it to the buyer. So there is a cost for that. There's a fee for that, but in general, the fee is not as much as the bidding war would get them.
Yeah.
So basically, it puts them on a level playing field with investors who are coming in with a lot of cash that they can. And you have to be home. You have to be owner occupied. It's not available to investors. You have to have at least a 700 credit score. You have to have at least 10 to 15% down. They want 10% down and then another 5 for a buffer just in case. But it's a pretty good deal for buyers who are in a position and they have some cash available and they don't want to keep getting overbid all the time.
Yeah. For those buyers that do have the ceiling to do that, I think that's a great idea. And I have not seen it in this market. It's probably going on. I just haven't seen it.
Not every market has it. And even the lenders who, like I said, we have one lender in this area, Evergreen Mortgage, is doing that. So I don't even know how people would Google for that to find out if.
Yeah, I'm gonna call the mortgage lender that I have a contact with and just ask them if that's something that they're offering, because that's a very useful tool right now, especially because we just had a listing in all of the offers that had financing. I was like, at the end of the day, you're going to go right back to your offer price. So they offered 15 over, 20 over, but after everything they have, you're ending back at your listing price. And they didn't have a lot of leverage. They had no like added bonus to take that offer, because you had 5 cash offers sitting here and you're like, those are great offers in any other market, but right now you're like bottom of the pool.
Yeah. So another alternative for buyers is to buy under their ability to pay. So if they can qualify for 400,000, they should be looking at 350 or 320. And then they have the option to go over. And then also some buyers are willing to clean out their 401k and then refinance after the fact. So they can use as long as they can do it within 60 days, they don't have to pay that penalty. So they can take it out of their retirement or whatever, pay cash, and then replenish it by refinancing after the sale closes. So
yeah. And that comes with buyers that have the ability to tap into the 401k. There's been a lot of people out there that they're going for a home under 300 and they don't have the savings. Maybe they have the down payment. It's like, man, this is going to be a battle, but eventually we will find something.
I worked with one buyer who wanted a duplex because she wanted to retire. She'd never owned a home before. And so I showed her, first of all, I made sure she got pre-approved. Then I showed her probably 12 different duplexes in her price range. Were actually a little bit outside of her comfort zone, but she just needed to get something. She put multiple offers down. And finally and then we had a couple of inspections, and the inspections turned up not good. So then she had another offer on another place, and they just had a sale fail for the inspection. And so they provided the inspection report, and she took that and said, I can live with these things. And I'm not going to do my own inspection, which I don't really recommend. I recommend doing your own inspection. You never take another inspector's word for it. But we were 12 days outside of closing, and I found out that the underwriter who had underwritten her got fired because they weren't doing their job, and she actually never qualified for a loan at all.
Oh no.
Yeah. So that happens too. Yeah. Just when I think that maybe, they pay us too much in this field, I'm like, no, we don't get enough. We don't get nearly enough.
Wow. I've thankfully never had that situation. I'm sure that had to be a shock for your buyer.
It wasn't. She hated me, and it wasn't my fault. I'm like,
you get caught in the crossfires.
Yeah.
What ended up happening with that? Did the deal fall through, or was there?
Oh yeah, it fell through. Yeah, we had to pull out. She lost her earnest money. It was not good.
Dang. Well, hopefully that lender now is has some people in positions that do their job right, so that doesn't get
Yeah.
brought up again.
Yeah.
Is there any damages on that for the lender?
I don't know. Well, the underwriter was fired, so that's a pretty big damage. We went through a mortgage broker, and then I don't know if I guess if she wanted to pursue, she could, but she's not really talking to me anymore now. So I know.
And
Yeah.
those are the things where early in the show you said you have to have thick skin. That you didn't know that the underwriter didn't underwrite her correctly. We
No,
don't get to see their details.
No, I don't know the underwriter. It was my mortgage
Yeah.
broker who found the lender. I'm not even sure what lender it was now that I think about it. Yeah. So
That's crazy. Well, that is a whirlwind kind of situation going there. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
oh well, it's fine. It happens, And then on the flip side, you get, I have a listing coming up that he actually got COVID, so we had to postpone it a week. But I run comps, and there are 11 comps in the last 3 months in their direct area. Perfect. I mean, you never find that many comps.
Yeah.
And the average list price was $760. The average sales price was $950, and it's sold they all sold in an average of 4 days. So my clients were saying, should we list at this amount or this amount? And I said, it doesn't matter, because you're going to get way more than that anyway. So,
yeah, that's funny. With you running your brokerage, obviously you have your clients. Do you have agents underneath you?
No, I'm a sole proprietor. Yeah, I became a sole proprietor broker 3 years and a day after I was joining it. I belonged to a regional firm, and I was like tired of giving them $20,000 a year just to have a desk.
Yeah.
So I went on my own after that. I did start a partnership with somebody shortly after that 3-year mark, and it didn't really work out. We had completely different styles. I wasn't crazy about her ethics, and so I like running my own show.
Yeah, no, definitely. The only reason I ask is because you're in the training world. So
yes,
I figured who would be better as a broker, as the person who writes the training manuals for all of these CE and intro?
Well, I belong to a Facebook group called Masters in Real Estate. It's run by the owner of Soldera Properties, which is a small regional firm here. And we share, the people on the site share ideas, and we share referrals for inspectors or stagers or whatever. And a lot of time I am able to bring some value there because of my work with the curriculum that I work on. Sometimes even brokers who've been in the business a while don't understand the nuances of the law. They don't understand what steering is, for instance. And so I'm able to say, well, no, here's what the law says. Here's what NAR says about it. Oregon's interesting because we passed a law that now a federal judge has said the law is, we prohibited buyer love letters in Oregon.
She got the last one.
You got the last one, yeah. And then, but you know what? Now you can use them again.
Okay.
Even though NAR for at least 2 years has said, no, don't use them. And I don't submit them. If I receive them, I don't submit them. After the deal is over, if my clients want to see them, then I'll share it. But I tell my clients I have it, and I tell them why I'm not giving it to them. I also tell the buyer's agent why I'm not giving it, because NAR says don't do it. Because there's just too much opportunity for fair housing violation there. So
yeah, no, that is true. And there's specific things you can and can't say. Like you can't put a picture on there of who you are. There's a lot of little nuances on it where, I will be honest, about half of them I read, because usually it's between the buyer and the seller and it's not my thing. But if you don't read them, you could get in trouble by those fair housing laws.
Yeah, and they're actually on this Facebook group I belong to, there's a little debate about whether you have to present them, because one of the rules in Oregon is that you have to present all offers, all documentation related to the offer, and that would include a buyer love letter. So Oregon's own regulations actually conflict with what the National Association of Realtors is suggesting. So
is the letter actually part of the offer though?
That's a good question. That's up for debate. Yeah, that's a part of it.
I'd have to say you'd have to write that in the offer saying that this document is attached for it to technically be a part of the offer. Otherwise, it's just a document.
I'm with you. I'm not gonna present them, but there is people could make a case for it if they really wanted to. So
yeah, and that was another nuance. Just to go full circle as we wrap up the show, the little nuances of like getting into real estate and becoming an agent, what is a part of the offer and not a part of the offer. And so when I buy homes, like I tell all of my buyers, there's a lot of offers that I put out buying in cash that I do an inspection, but it's not contingent on the offer. So my offer is still my offer, but I'm still getting the inspection. And I let the seller know I'm going to get the inspection, but that's for my knowledge. I want to know what I have to go in and fix. It's not for me to pull out of the deal. So that's what means like, is it contingent or not contingent? You can still do it. And they're like, oh, I didn't even know you could do that. And those are like little things.
Well, one guerrilla tip that I would probably not employ myself, but it is waiving the inspection contingency, but then having the inspection and using the 5 days disclosure period, the seller disclosure period, to back out. So you say, no, I'm not happy with, so that you don't respond to the seller disclosures. Every market is different, but in Oregon, is the buyers have 5 days to review the seller disclosures, and they can back out for any reason if they don't like something in the disclosure.
Yeah.
So using that 5 days, waiving the inspection, but then using that 5-day disclosure period in which to perform the inspection, and then you back out because of the disclosure. So I have heard some brokers are doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. It's I guess a loophole, which is why you're saying you wouldn't do it yourself, but with the contract, how it's written, that is possible.
Yeah.
I didn't even connect those dots. A nice little nugget right at the end of the show for anybody that wants to use it. Well, thank you very much. We try to keep it to an hour just so we can still save some of our Friday.
Oh, arrow run by. That was fun.
I know, it goes so quick. Natasha yelled at me the first couple of shows were like an hour and a half, hour 25, 140. And then she was like, we got to keep this to an hour. And when we
cut off the volume at some point, just turn the volume off.
I know, just turn off everything. All right, we're done. When we weren't on video, she was sitting across from me and she would always give me like the 5 minute or like the 2 minute. And I was like, all right, I gotta go. But no, she keeps me on pace, which I appreciate. But thank you so much for coming on.
You, Marcus.
You being in the training world is like the perfect person to come in for anybody that's thinking about coming into real estate. It's possible. You pretty much built your real estate in college on little to no money going into it. So real life example right here. So thank you for sharing that for us.
It can be done.
It can be done. Well, we look forward to hearing what's new for you. For anybody that wants to reach out or has questions, obviously they can contact you on social media. What are some ways, we'll put it in the show notes so they can contact you. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Email's great, YvonneAileen@gmail.com. And also I have a real estate website, Yvonne Aileen Realty, that they can check out.
Awesome. And then we'll put the link to your book as well for any of those people that are looking for a home right now. I'm guessing that you're on the hunt, but you've got some time with the market still where it is. So pick up the book, give it a read. It'll help you on your next offer.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. We will connect soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Have a good weekend.
Take care.